So we're getting towards the end of splining our first two holes, and the last thing we're talking about is, well, miscellaneous, which is depends on your golf course, right? So the best I can do is give you an example of what I'm doing for my golf course, and I just want to make sure that the important thing here is to go through the whole process with your two holes. That way, when you get into Unity and see how things look, when you come back to finish everything else here, you're gonna have a better idea how to proceed. Now, for these two holes, let's go first of all and turn off our surrounding rough so we can see our satellite overlay. And now we do know that our underneath our water area here, we don't really need to see there because it's just, well, it's just water, right? But a couple things that we have here on these two holes, outside of our fairways and everything we've done right as far as, there's one area right here between our lake and our cart path that is essentially what I would consider very thick forest area, and essentially it's going to play as deep rough. Now, someone hits a golf ball out there, it's a pretty bad shot. However, they should be penalized, and we're going to make this deep rough. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spline this area out between the lake and our cart path as deep rough. And how I'm going to do this is, remember, we put our water and our cart paths at the very top of the hierarchy. So if I add anything else here into my hole 10, it'll be underneath those two. So I'm just going to spline an area right about here that is going to be deep rough, and it's going to be between those two. So let me get it started, and then I'll pause and I'll show you the end result. So let me go make sure I'm in hole 10. So I got hole 10 highlighted here. I'm going to go to my pen tool, and I'm going to start right about here. And I'm going to go down. You might be asking, well, what about this, cart area up here? I'm not worried about that for now. I can always add those things later on, and I might show you guys that in subsequent videos where we get into finishing the splining. But for your first two holes, let's not get too crazy. Now, what I am doing here, if I zoom in, I'm going to use this cart path as kind of a demarc for this shape, meaning that our deep rough is going to be in the upper side or north side of this, and the bottom side of this is just going to be normal rough. Okay, so I'm going to pause this as I shape this out as to not waste your time. Okay, so that's done, and you can see since I put this under hole 10, okay, which in the hierarchy is under water and under cart paths, that shape, even though, okay, it goes through the water here, and then it goes right in the middle of the cart path. But because it's lower in the hierarchy, it actually, those are on top, so they're going to cut through it. So that works out rather nicely. Again, that's the advantage of putting these things into folders. Once you have a better idea, you might not have to use all these folders, but it does help. Now let's go and turn on our surrounding rough back on again. Now what's going to happen here? Well, remember, our surrounding rough is all the way at the bottom, so it's going to be even underneath this and everything else, so it should be fine. And it is. So that's also an advantage of doing everything in the folders like I'm talking about right now. So let's turn our surrounding rough back off again. And just for the sake of, actually this might work out really well right here. Looks like there's actually a deep rough area right here. If I zoom in, looks like this is some heavy grassy area right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to draw that area at hole 10, and I'm going to draw another deep rough area here. And let me just do that. And even though we don't have a cart path drawn here, I bet we are going to subsequently some other time. So I'm going to draw like we do have a cart path here, anticipating I'm going to do another one later on another hole. It looks like this rough comes right about out here, and then it comes along this line and right to about there. So a little bit more deep rough. Let me turn on my surrounding rough, and it doesn't look like it encompasses it at this point. So I'm going to come back into my surrounding shape here, and I'm just going to pull it out. Now again, there's definitely going to be more stuff added later on. We're just working with two holes, getting the hang of things. So this is perfectly fine for what we want to do, because we're going to come back and finish this. You can always change these things later on. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do that. And now you can see that we have this hole. These two holes are, I would think, just about done. So what do we do? Well, let's go up here and save a revision. So save as. I'm going to say 5. And what did we do? Well, we did deep rough. Save that. And we'll run it through Blender and see what happens. Okay, it's an opportunity for a little lesson here, which is here are the emails I got back. And you can see I've got post-cut check found bad splines. So if I read that, please check your debug folder. We've generated this file. It's possible it can be false positive. So it's possible this is not an issue. Let's go back here, and you can see that it did come back a couple minutes later and says successfully meshed my SVG. So let's go into the folder. And the first thing we want to do is let's go into our debug folder and let's see which meshes it has. So I got bad splines.csv. Let me double click on this, and it's saying my cut deep outer 12. And I do know that that happens quite a bit. You get those those outer splines often have errors. So we're just going to find this one inside the Blender file and make sure it looks all right. So that's deep outer 12. Let's just make a mental note of that. Deep outer 12. Okay. So next thing is, let's go back into our folder, and we're going to download our mesh. And I already did that, so you don't have to wait. So it's going to be up here. Here's our mesh, TPC5 mesh. It's going to open up in Blender, allow execution, and then I'm going to go fly around here. And first thing you're going to notice is my water looks like an odd color. And I had to change that for a very complicated reason, but I'll let you know. So here, looks like we got a little bit of a problem. And what's that problem? Well, which one is this? So if I highlight this, I bet this is 12. Yep, that's our 12 right here. If I turn that on and off, yeah, so something didn't cut quite right. And it looks like it's right along the line that we made our deep that new shape around the outside. So something along that isn't jiving here. So we'll go in and we'll take a look at that. But everything else looks okay at this point. So that's the only one that we really have an issue on. But it's definitely that new shape that we added. So if we come back into our shape, we go here, scroll over, take a look at this guy. Now what we can do is, there's not much here. I mean, we can try to smooth these out. Take that. Sometimes these long straight paths cause problems. So what we could do is just bump this out a little bit. Let me just bump this out. Sometimes, yeah, these long straight lines can cause problems. And could be like where this was at here. But again, I might try to send this through Blender again. And if it doesn't work, I'll probably just have to redraw this. And instead of trying to figure out what it is. So do that. I can maybe change another couple of these guys. Maybe just drag this one a little further away. And then we'll do save. Keep this as 5. And run it through Blender again. All right, so when I went back in, it actually failed again. So I just went back and redrew that here. I redrew it again. So I did the cart path. This time I kind of did it differently down in this area. You can see I took it down all the way to the cart path and looped it farther out. Mostly what I changed was down here. And then in Blender, it all looks good now. Okay. One last note. Don't limit yourself to just the colors that we used down here. You have access to these customs. So some of these have blends, some of them don't have blends. And it's, feel free to make up some shapes. because you can wipe all this stuff out when later on. It'll be useful to see how this works in Unity, and actually through Blender, on how these different colors, understanding on how they work inside of Unity, what the blends look like, and then how materials get assigned to these inside of Unity will be very beneficial for you. So, feel free to, take a pen and come in here and draw some shape that maybe doesn't make sense here, and change it to a particular color. And then you can go in Unity and see how you assign materials and physics to those as well. It'll be a good exercise for you, because later on you're going to come back and you can redo all this stuff.